Welcome to the Queen City Music Podcast, the podcast devoted to the local music scene in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, here's your host, Matthew Ablan.
Hello and welcome to episode 60 of the Queen City Music Podcast. This episode of the Queen City Music Podcast is sponsored by Middlesea Jazz, Charlotte's premier jazz club located at 300 South Brevard Street in Uptown Charlotte. Stop in for Thursday night jazz jams, gospel Sundays every third Sunday of the month, or bi-weekly Wednesdays for Remember Wednesdays. But if you prefer, stay in for the evening and watch their Saturday night live stream, where you'll have access to the best performances Middlesea Jazz has to offer. And if you want the VIP treatment, get a Baby Grand membership, where life takes you to a higher note. Tickets are now available for Alan Trotman, A Taste of Barbados on September 4th, the Jeff Lorber Trio on September 9th and 10th, Judith Hill on September 16th and 17th, the Jason Marsalis Quartet, Good Vibes, on September 22nd, and Lori Williams on September 30th. And if you're in need of instruments or supplies, head over to Midwood Guitar Studio, Charlotte, North Carolina's own boutique guitar shop located in Plaza Midwood. Midwood Guitar Studio not only has the finest selection in boutique guitars, but familiar names like Fender, Martin, Taylor, Two Rock, and many others. Whether it's a guitar, bass, amp, effects pedal, or a much-needed accessory, the knowledgeable and friendly staff at Midwood Guitar Studio will help guide you in the right direction for your next purchase. And for all your guitar repair needs, Midwood Guitar Studio now has a luthier on staff. Visit their website at midwoodguitarstudio.com. And please welcome our newest sponsor, Bandzoogle, built by musicians for musicians. Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform that makes it easy to build a stunning website and EPK for your music. All the features you need for a professional website are already built in, which include dozens of fully customizable templates, tools to sell your music and merch commission-free, mailing list tools to grow your fan list and send newsletters, commission-free crowdfunding and fan subscription features, integrations for Bandcamp, SoundCloud, YouTube, Bands in Town, and more, so you can easily add content from your other online profiles. And there's live support from the musician-friendly team 7 days a week. Plans start at just $8.29 a month, which includes hosting and your own free custom domain name. Queen City Music Podcast listeners can go to bandzoogle.com and try it for free for 30 days and use the promo code QCMP to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code QCMP. This month on episode 60 of the QCMP, I'm speaking with Todd Johnson, who you may know from his recordings or performances with Todd Johnson and the Revolvers. If that wasn't enough, he also hosts the podcast Making Noise with Todd Johnson. Todd Johnson, welcome to the Queen City Music Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I've wanted to have you on for a while, and I finally got around to getting things scheduled and reaching out. So, man, thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, so Todd, I'm always starting the podcast the same way. Are you originally from the Charlotte area?
No, not originally. North Carolina kid, from kind of bounced around Greensboro area, Statesville area, and kind of lived out in Burlington for a while. But I've lived in Charlotte for the past 9 years.
What brought you?
Well, I was a musician living in another town, kind of in Burlington area, and was also kind of had just in my mid-20s big crisis moment of like was playing a lot of gigs, ended up losing my voice. I was having to go to the throat doctor a lot and deal with that. And so essentially a lot of other things were going on, and I needed to reset, move to a new town, figure out a break. And, at the time I was a full-time musician who couldn't sing, and realized that was kind of a moment for me of realizing I really wanted to still be a singer. And if I was going to do that, I was going to not have to be able to, I shouldn't sing 7 nights a week for $20,
Do you mind if I ask what happened with your voice?
So, a lot of it was just kind of wearing down. I was playing, I was kind of averaging about seven shows a week on certain times. So, I mean, we would like double up on Saturdays, and I was in 2 different bands, and I was in a live band karaoke thing. And, it was great. And part of it was honestly just being in my early to mid 20s, running through that. And also, you know, I was smoking cigarettes, I was drinking, you know, cause drinks are free. When
not hydrating,
not taking care of myself. So it was very obvious what, you know, was kind of happening.
Yeah.
You know, so I was getting, starting to have polyps develop, and, you know, essentially got to a point where, you know, the third time talking with a doctor who, you know, an ear, nose, and throat doctor, fortunately kind of said, you know, it kind of made a point of like, you're already causing a lot of damage to your voice. We don't know if it's going to be repairable or not. If you don't take a month off, we're not sure if we need to do surgery or not, but like if we do, there's a chance that you will lose some of your voice.
Wow.
And so that was a very good, wake up call for me. And part of that at the same time, my, brother lives here in Charlotte. And so I've visited Charlotte all the time. I've played in Charlotte a lot.
Yeah.
I've always loved the city. And, you know, he lived here, and I was able to kind of say, can I move in your basement and just kind of restart? You know, like, let me just bring all my music stuff. Let me do this and kind of move to Charlotte with, you know, a little bit of a game plan of, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to figure out this music career thing. But I need to come here to do it. And I'm honestly, I'm happy I did it. You know, this is the town.
A number of years ago, I had a similar issue, but it wasn't for anything else. I'd like not nodules on my throat. I teach elementary music, and it was one day I was co-teaching with a buddy of mine, and I was getting sick, and he was already sick, and we couldn't sing. And if you teach elementary music, I mean, you sing.
You have to, right.
And I said to my friend, well, man, this is my issue. And he's like, I really can't do it right now. I was like, all right, F it. I'll do it. And I started singing, and something popped in my throat, and I wound up bursting a blood vessel.
Oh no.
And
wow.
I got almost a dimple on the back of my throat, and I was drinking tea, and I was like, I got this tickle. I can't get rid of it. I went to the ENT, man, and he was just like, oh, you've got this. You need to not talk so much. And I was like, man, I'm a teacher. I can't not talk. Can't not sing. So literally it took quite a while for my voice to recover. And I'm still not even sure, you know, to this day, I've forgotten what my original voice sounded like, because I think it's retained some of the raspiness from that actual event that occurred. Not to mention smoking cigarettes for years. I mean, it's, you know, it's the kind of thing that happens. So.
Yeah. I had a really good wake up call recently with this too, cause I don't smoke cigarettes. I do still kind of have a problem with nicotine. And I'm the annoying guy with the vape. And, but I'm working on it. I got these little nicotine toothpicks. I'm getting off of it. But,
do it, man.
But the thing is like, Bruce Springsteen and Mellencamp put out a song together. And, you know, hearing these 2 older men that we have heard for years what their voice sounds like in the 80s. Yeah. And that's how we have it. And then to hear them older, and one of them smokes and one of them doesn't. Oh yeah, Mellencamp is a notorious chain smoker. And just that Mellencamp thing and you're just like, oh man, like I liked it when you had more than 2 notes, man. You were such a good singer. I liked it better when you had more than 2 notes, you know? And so yeah, for me, my vocal health but it was good. It was a good wake up call for me, because it was, you know, I was basically in my mid 20s going like, oh, I don't care about my health. Right. At all. Yeah. You know, I care about music and doing this thing, and then I was doing it and completely wrecking myself and was like, why am I doing that? You know?
It's a good wake up call, because then if you decide that you are going to do music and this is where you're going,
you got to do it right.
Yeah. There's a health component to it. I mean, not even just vocal health, man. I mean, there's a good sleep so that your voice is sounding good. They're staying in shape, because there's a physical component of lugging gear all the time.
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of people don't think about that kind of stuff. So it's all the little things that you have to keep up on, you know, when you're doing your music. So
for sure. 100%.
So anyway, man, what is your music background, Todd?
So, I've been playing guitar since, I was kind of in a middle school area, and getting lessons for a few years. That was kind of the big thing. Found a guitar in the attic. That was my stepdad's. When my stepdad and mom, we moved into a new house, so you get to like see in the attic all this stuff that's some other person's that you don't know. Yeah. And then I was like, you have a guitar? And And he's like, yeah, I mean, it's just a cheap little, I was like, I want to play it. I want a big electric guitar. And they're like, there's absolutely no way. You got to play, you got to go, if you play the attic guitar for a while, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
So for me, to get an electric guitar was the coolest thing in the world. So, I mean, I would, practice all the time and went to lessons, once a week. And then after a couple of years of doing that and just kind of locking in, around when I was 16 or so, my guitar teacher, it was in a little shop called Monroe's Music in Ashboro.
Mm-hmm.
And right next door to it on Sunset Avenue was Sunset Recording Studio.
Okay.
And I didn't really know what that was, but it was next door to the place. And the guy who was teaching me, a gentleman named Larry Davis, he said that the guy who owns that studio is also in a cover band and they're looking for a guitar player and you should go down and talk to him. And those were enough words for me that a guy who owns a recording studio needs a guitar player in his band. So I, went down there and talked to him. His name is Rob Elliott. He's a great guy and had the studio. And I'd never seen that sort of thing before. And I'd always wanted to see it, because you'd see, what a recording studio looks like in a, video or something. And so I did everything I could do to join this cover band. And also, unfortunately, probably for them, quickly tried to do everything I could to make it an original band. Because.
So right off the bat, you were into writing original stuff?
Yeah, I didn't know how to do it, but I wanted to.
Okay.
I wanted to.
So you hadn't been, before you tried to get into cover band, you hadn't been trying to write some original stuff?
Yeah, I did. I think there was this one song that I wrote called, Grayson that was about Dick Grayson, who's Robin.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Batman.
And,
or Robin in it.
I think I found the lyrics to it. It's god awful. It has nothing to do with, and also just the premise right there. You're like, wow, that's something we can all relate to. Robin. But,
hey, he's also known as Nightwing. Thank you.
It is Nightwing. It is. I dressed up as Nightwing, when I was like 8 years old for Halloween and my dad had to drag me around and explain who I was to everybody.
Except for comic book geeks like me.
But yeah, so I kind of wrote there, but it was so bad. That was a song that I wrote and I played with, a buddy of mine and we tried to get into the, high school talent competition with it.
Yeah.
But that song was so bad, as well as everyone else who signed up for the talent competition, that they canceled the talent competition that year. So
there's no talent here.
There's nothing more demeaning to a rural high school kid who wrote his first song to then go, you were so bad, we're canceling the entire thing, And, so yeah, I think that was my first real big bomb.
My gosh.
But yeah, so I started doing that. And then when the cover band thing hit, it was like, okay, you got to learn 40 songs in 2 weeks. And to me, I had never, I'd only been playing guitar for a few years. I had no idea of doing that. So it was, I was very happy to, that was kind of my first real assignment.
Trial by fire?
It was trial by fire. And that was a really good lesson for me there.
Wow.
So yeah, I've just kind of been doing that kind of thing ever since, really. Wow.
So I'm going to fast forward a little bit, but, I found out you went to do some audio recording at Guilford, Technical Community College.
Yeah.
And I was kind of curious about that because a couple of years back, I've been recording for a few years, but I always decided, I should maybe do some formal training. Mm-hmm. So I went down to CPCC.
Right.
In Charlotte here, and they had an audio recording class.
Yes.
And unfortunately or unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Dan Guerrero, I was taking classes with. He's a fantastic guy.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Dan Guerrero's a great guy and very knowledgeable. He's actually was on the podcast, so you can check back past episodes.
Sweet. I'll go. Oh man, good. Well, like I said, I'm going through a few. I can't. It's a really good show, man.
Oh,
it really is. I appreciate it.
So they only had 4 classes, and I kept talking to Dan about you should talk to the powers that be about expanding out and doing like a mixing class. And, you know, this is the class for the semester is to learn how to mix. So when you studied there, I was curious to know, was it more than 4 classes? Was there a whole program?
It was a whole big program. So when I was getting out of, so kind of the same thing being in that Greensboro area, growing up, I went to UNCG, for a year. And really a big part of the idea was like, I wanted to stay close because I still wanted this band that I was in. We're going to make some more music. We're going to do our thing. So I wanted to stay close. Right. And going to Greensboro was great. I loved UNCG. I loved college life, but I, you know, immediately dropped out after a year due to, I mean, I had got on academic probation right away. I mean, you know, but the big thing for me was I wanted to go to college to go into a recording studio. Okay. Cause in my 18-year-old brain, I said, I've got this whole music thing figured out, but what I would really love to do is I would love to have a 9 to 5 where I'm in a recording studio, working with great talented people. And then, you know, on Friday nights, we gotta, the band's gotta play Madison Square Garden. Right. And then Saturday we gotta fly to Staples Center.
So can I just backtrack one thing? So when you're going to college. Right. You didn't think about studying music in college because you thought you had that figured out? Do I have that right? Or you decided to do the recording thing?
At first, so I went to go, I signed up to be at the School of Music at UNCG. Yeah. And couldn't get in. And which was due to a little bit, I felt like at the time, a complete lack of understanding of information. And as far as what was needed for the audition process. Like I didn't for the classical, I had been learning classical from a flamenco player, but I didn't have a classical guitar. I was just playing it on a steel string.
Yeah. So college is either classical or jazz.
Right. Yeah. And so I went and did the jazz audition and the classical audition. They wouldn't let me in because I didn't have a classical guitar. And I mean, I, you know, specifically remember asking, is there one around that I could pick up and use? Cause I had, you know, worked on this piece with it and I just didn't own one. Right. And I think because a lot of my training was private training. Yeah. Because there was nowhere to really, I couldn't get in band class in middle school because
you're a guitar player.
And also moving around, being in one middle school, they started it in 6th grade. Being another, they started in 8th. Gotcha. So moving in, I couldn't be a band kid. Right. So that was kind of another, playing guitar was a way in for music. I didn't, you know, so when I didn't get in, to the School of Music, I was kind of like, all right, well, ultimately I would probably end up sounding like I went and I graduated from UNCG. Right. Like I would sound like a classical guitar player that did this thing. And I don't really know if I want to be a classical guitar player. So, but, I do want to be in a rock band and rock bands work out of studios. So that was kind of the thing. So, I mean, I went with like a communication major or something, like just to get in. And after a year, really, I mean, after about 6 months, I was like, I just want to do stuff with my band and learn as much about recording as I can. Because I'd also been in a studio practicing with a band. Right. And kind of learning the basics anyway of recording. So to me, that seemed like a better career path, you know, doing that. I really loved the recording experience. So, dropped out of UNCG for a year and, now, sorry, I know that was a long way around. No. The entertainment technology department at Guilford Tech, I wish I would have went there. If I could have done it all over again, went straight there just because the facility that they have, I believe Larry Gatlin was originally the sponsor for it was originally called the Larry Gatlin School of Entertainment Technology. And I think it still might be, but, did a big investment into the school so they could, make the facilities. So it's got multiple recording studios. It's got a very big live stage area. So that way, you know, that was really good for me to be in school and, you know, do lighting classes and realize that while lighting is cool, I don't like climbing on the top of a rig that's 85 feet in the air. Yeah. And so, and I want to be on the stage. So while it's cool to learn lighting and know all this stuff, I don't want to be a lighting guy.
Right.
And I don't think if I didn't have that 2-year program, I wouldn't have been able to understand what kind of musician or career path I would want to do.
Right.
And it was very cool to see a place that was very honest and frank about the music industry and entertainment industry. And, would be very honest about their graduate process and things like that, and make it a little, even though this was a community college, there was a level that needed to be set, and basically explaining this might not be a career path.
Right.
Not everybody is going to hire you just because you got out from this college.
Right.
There's a lot of there's a lot of audio colleges now that are putting out audio engineers. And that was a really good lesson for me, I think, early on.
So did you study audio engineering there, though?
Yeah, that was the main thing I did.
Okay, so how many was it? It was a whole program of stuff?
It was a whole program, yeah. So
mixing and mastering?
Learning mixing and mastering. The Audio 1, the way that they broke it up was you had these 4 different career paths that you could kind of go down or get all of them. To kind of get still in entertainment technology with a focus in record engineering or live sound and lighting or something like that. So for the mixing, like Audio 1 is, a group of 30 or 40 kids kind of slammed into a room saying, this is what a waveform is. This is what audio is. This is how we measure it. This is the science of it. And really doing a deep dive into that because, and getting the foundations of it.
Yes.
And normally there would be 3 to 4 classes a semester, I believe, that were Audio 1. And then for the Audio 2 class, there would probably be like 20 people, and there was only 1 a semester. So a lot of times what you would do is you wouldn't have people that would class out to get to that second class.
Right.
And that's where you really kind of started recording. I mean, that's what was really interesting about the program is they made it like you're not going to get into the studios until then.
Yes.
But after basically about, a year of kind of going through all that training and understanding stuff, we would do a year in a recording studio and would sit down in the facility and say, this is what we're doing as far as EQ. These are the mic techniques. And then my final project there, they essentially say, this is what your budget would be. If you had an imaginary budget, you are the engineer and or music producer for this project.
Right.
You pick the project, you pick whatever it is, you can use our studios. This is how much it is on the mock budget to rent these mics, to rent if you need an assistant, to rent if you want to use this piece of gear, if you want to use this room for a day versus this room for a day. And that, to me, I realized there was also a little bit of a loophole where if you were to do that project, you also could do a remix project where you could go through and mix and basically just mix as much as you want and not have to have it under this mock pay system. Just do it whenever it's available. So I basically signed up to do this project and what it was and what it was going to be, and then use the free mix time to remix everything on this project and made my first record.
Wow.
In the college. And it really does sound like a kid who's trying to figure it out if you listen to it. Yeah. But I mean,
that's okay.
But that was really my first lesson in, I have been in bands by this point, that were breaking up and getting in new bands and meeting these great musicians who are also trying to figure out what their career was. And so it was just a beautiful experience of like across the hall is this one guy recording, backing vocals for his track. And in my room, I'm doing this. And in the other main room, there's a guy who's trying to write a concept album. So he needs, like audio for, a crowd scene. So they're in the auditorium multi-tracking this crowd scene. And so it was just a bunch of creative kids that they had kind of given keys to the campus. If you actually stuck around long enough and cared enough.
It just sounds like an interesting course or degree as opposed to going to a straightforward technical recording college that does this thing specifically because, one, those colleges are fairly expensive, and then two, there, at least today, there's not a lot of studios you're going to go get hired at, and you're going to make $50,000 a year. You just came out of recording classes.
That doesn't right.
And it doesn't happen.
Well,
anymore.
the problem is, and this should be something that goes to anybody that's trying to get into thinking about this. I think that there is an education industry a little bit with the private recording industry and with the entertainment industry in specific.
Oh yeah.
Where I think there are people who are promising parents that your child could get a job if they wanted to be a recording engineer by coming through this project. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that happened to me or anything. That was exactly where I needed to be. But I do think I've seen that a few times where, and I mean, I remember feeling this way too when I really started interning in studios. Yeah. I started interning in recording studios in like 2008. Now I was gigging as well, so I could pay to do it. But that year the music industry collapsed. You know,
I mean, things have we were talking earlier before we started recording, and man, things have just really changed. Mm-hmm. I had a conversation with a friend of mine who I used to study classical guitar with back in Cleveland, and I told him, I said, man, if I had to do it all over again today, I'm not sure I would go to school and study music, because when I was going and studying classical guitar, I went to study classical guitar and I went for that teacher. If I was to do it today, I might say, I'm going to move to Cleveland and I'm going to take private lessons with you and work. Right. Because I don't need all the extra that the school's giving me. Maybe I need a couple of classes or something like that. I might not need to be fully enrolled because this is what I want to do.
That's absolutely. There was a kid there that was going for the program right out of high school, and then he had, a way of paying for college or going for loans for university. Yeah. And one of my, and later after talking to one of the professors, because he was very good, kind of said, hey, why don't you use that money to, live for a year or two and intern in a studio, intern in this one down here, and I'll make a phone call and do that sort of thing. And that was really the thing of just get in there and do the work and find work.
Yes.
While you do it and get the person you want to work with. Absolutely.
It's just amazing that how much the entertainment field for music specifically has just changed. And you could be recording, it could be performing, but it has changed a great deal in the last decade.
Right. Well, the bubble of the record industry is gone. Is the one big thing, the money being kind of thrown into it, but also then with the technology being so much cheaper, it's kind of like, I think it's a cool thing. I think it's great that me as a kid who was like 14, 15 years old watching MTV going like, whoa, and trying to figure it out. Yeah. Due to the technology and everything kind of being like, I'm doing that right now. It's super cool that I can make a record and work with people and do all these things that I don't think would have been possible if I was maybe born in the 60s. I don't know if I would have been lucky enough to wander into a recording studio
or meet those people who have access to it, right?
Right. Because those people were so few. Yeah.
And when I came up, being a bit older than you, we had 4-track recorders, but those 4-track recorders were not cheap. They were freaking expensive back in the 80s. And, it's like, okay, I can do this demo.
All those, the cassette deck ones that are, and the Tascam ones. Yeah. The Porta Studio. Yeah. I had one of those.
It's not cheap at the time, man.
No.
So, but I mean, bringing it around to what we're just talking about in modern day. Yeah. And you've got, recording experience. You went to school for it. How are you set up at home? Do you do recording at home, or what's your situation?
Well, so my home situation is a little smaller. I used to have a bigger thing, and I would have, when I first moved to Charlotte, the whole idea of, moving into my brother's basement and all that stuff, I took everything that I had, my drums and amps and guitars and my whole mixing setup. And at that point it was a pretty good Pro Tools rig. Yeah. It wasn't, I could multi-track, and record, I think I had 16 tracks, so I could record a whole band. And so that's essentially what I did for that. I've really downsized a lot though now, because I'm very fortunate to be able to work with a lot of the great studios in this area. Mm-hmm. And, if they already own really good, $500,000 rooms. Yeah. then it's so much cheaper really for me to pay them and get their expertise.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so much cheaper and better quality than me trying to be the best, have all the best sounding microphones and preamps and acoustically treated rooms. Like, that stuff sounds great and works great. If those spaces are already there, it's better for me to use them. So for me, I just have like a little demo set up at home. And it makes me a better songwriter, I think.
Right.
It makes me not get up and go try to play the drums. And then, oh, well, if I do this synthy idea, it makes me go, no, just what are the chords? What are the words? And then we'll take it somewhere else and work with other, and then I'll kind of put my producer hat on.
Okay.
You know.
So the home studio is strictly for just coming up with demos.
Writing and demoing.
Demoing.
Yeah.
And putting it together. Yeah, the home studio is just amazing. I mean, it's like you said a moment ago, you know, rather than coming over and doing the synthy thing, I find myself, I'm like, ooh, I've got these drum loops. Let me put that in here. And now I can play around with this and I can add this. Oh, let me grab my bass and all of a sudden something starts taking form. And you're like, damn, you know?
Well, I write in Pro Tools a lot.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, I've written in Pro Tools for years and I've stopped myself over the past few years of doing it because it really, the Revolvers has been a really great way of making me do that a little bit, because a lot of times what I would do is I'd make these full demos and I would get the drum loops. And that's the problem with going to college for it, is you now know how to do this crap.
Yeah.
So now you do it to every single idea that you have. You got to put it out and you got to try every single thing. And I would write these songs and then come up with these demos, quote unquote demos, that were basically done.
Right.
You know, and no one else got any other input on it. No, the drums sound exactly like this. This is how the bass part is. I just need you to play exactly what I wrote with the MIDI drums because I want to mic it differently. And that would kind of be the way I worked for my own original music.
Gotcha.
And I'm really glad, and me moving away from that has kind of been being a little better about accepting not being a control freak, essentially.
As we all are when we're musicians.
Oh,
and especially if you're a songwriter, this is what I hear in my head.
Right.
You know, I've got to kind of get this out.
Well, and I had the tools to do exactly what I had in my head.
Yeah.
I was never taught properly how to classical music, as far as, you know, from like a violinist standpoint.
Yeah.
But I can add any instrument in the world and I know how to write that.
Yeah.
That's an awesome tool to learn and know. I don't know if it's ever made my songwriting better to be able to write that way.
I mean, ultimately it comes down to your ear. I mean, you could take whatever musician you want, whether it's Beethoven to Led Zeppelin. Mm-hmm. If it sounds good, it works.
Right.
And anybody who does any music theory and comes along later on and tells you something, well, they're just figuring out what you did and giving you the answer for it. It's, you know what I mean? I mean, there are rules to music and there are rules why things work that way, but ultimately they work that way because your ear says it sounds good. Yeah. I mean, that's really the twist.
There was one thing that, I remember kind of in school, that this happens a lot with like audio nerdity, where people are like, oh, this gear's not good. This gear's better because it's more expensive, you know? Or this gear's not good because they made it too simple, you know, instead of just a one knob compressor, instead of actually learning what a compressor is or whatever, or auto tune is, so, you know, and it's one of those things where someone's like, if there was a button that made life easier and you press that button once instead of pressing 12 other buttons, wouldn't you want that button? Yeah. You know, and you're like, yeah. So it's okay to have these, you know, not to the snobbery thing. And it's the same thing of, you know, kind of what you were saying, like, if it sounds good, it sounds good.
I mean, that is the bottom line.
It doesn't matter how we got there. It doesn't matter if it's a $100 Squire or, you know, whatever.
And most people can't even tell the difference anyway, you know?
Yeah.
So you just got to rely on your era and your preferences.
We put all of this money and time and energy into something that someone's just going to listen to on their phone.
Yeah.
You know, on a quick YouTube video or Instagram while they're scrolling by. They're going to look at it for 2 seconds and I'm going to be like, I spent the last year on this and every penny I've got.
Yep.
You know?
I was just talking to somebody about digital modeling amps and things like that. And I'm like, you know, maybe there's a thing about pushing air on stage with a regular old amplifier, but when you're recording, the layman is not going to be able to tell the difference between a good digital Marshall amp and the actual real Marshall amp.
The Marshall Plexi model in Pro Tools 11, the stock Marshall Plexi is I can get an immediately great sound out of it.
Yeah.
You know, it just sound, and it sounds like a Marshall Plexi.
Yep.
It sounds like a different one,
Yep.
but I've played other amps like that sound a little different too, you know. And live, I just for ease of live setup, I just went digital.
Yeah.
You know, cause the problem with the guitar player is always like, well, now the band's louder and I can't hear myself. So then I go turn up my guitar amp and then I piss off the sound guy, you know, and it's like, but every time I've done, you know, embrace the technology a little bit more, modeling technology is so much different than it was even 10 years ago.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I remember when those first little red pods came out and I was like, this sounds like garbage. And now, you know, there's a studio that I go to and he's like, man, I've got 15 amps and I'm going to sell them because everyone uses the Kemper modeler.
Yeah. And there's a lot of major acts where the guys it's easier for them to tour using a Kemper because they carry their guitar, they carry the Kemper, and then they just go on stage and they just go direct.
I love it.
So, and even I just saw, she said it's different in her setup. Nita Strauss, who was the guitar player for Alice Cooper, she's now playing with Demi Lovato, I believe. And she did a tour on Guitar World magazine of her solo rig. Mm-hmm. And she's like, yeah, I'm using this Roland board. I used the GX or GP something 1000. Yeah. She's like, and I've been using different models of this for the last X years because when I'm doing my solo band, it's a smaller outfit and I can do this. Now, if you're a major band and you can afford to bring amps and you got, you know, trucks all and stuff.
Well, that's the thing that I think, you know, when you kind of get to this level of, all right, now I'm making a career out of this, but not everybody knows who I am. Yeah. There is like this weird area, and I kind of don't want everybody to know who I am. Yeah. But there's this weird area of like, oh, how does that happen? And like for her, it's probably so much easier to make a fly date. Yeah. You know, like doing fly dates, you kind of have to have a small rig. And I just bought a Pod Go. And that's going to be that and one guitar, or it's so much easier for me to bring different guitars. I'd rather bring 2 or 3 electric guitars to a show that are vastly different than take up more room in the car with an amp. Yeah. That honestly, I'm going to have to do some more maintenance to. It doesn't sound that good. I don't like this amp anymore. Yeah. And this box has 80 amps in it. So, and they sound good. So it makes so much more sense. It does.
It does. So man, coming back to songwriting, you've actually got a couple of things out. You've got 3 albums out and a couple of singles. Are those albums, I know there's like 6 tracks on each album. So are you considering those EPs or are you considering them full length?
I'm trying to remember. So, Nowhere to Go But Up, which was titled that on purpose, was the first record. That was the college record. Okay. That's, I think that's on Apple and all that kind of stuff floating around out there. That was kind of the first thing. And then I did a duo spaghetti western acoustic rock duo with a buddy from college called Sentenza. Yes. I have no idea why it didn't work out. And
it actually sounded really good, man. Oh, I was listening on your website.
Yeah, oh, cool, man. Yeah, we had a blast making that. And that was I think at the time really good for me because we were cover band gigging a lot. And so just doing something that was wonky and off the wall was exactly kind of where I needed to be. So, and me and him had a blast doing that. So, put that out. And then the EP where, self-explanatory was, I just kind of, the whole EP, I set everything up in my brother's basement and had lost my voice and was now starting to try to train it back. You know, I got a day job. I was doing kind of what I could to kind of get back on my feet since I wasn't going to be singing full time anymore. I knew that I had to cut that out. And so I need to get to where I could sing, you know, 2 to 3, maybe 4 nights in a week, or also be smart about my vocal health and, you know, actually get vocal lessons and actually learn not how to throw my voice out and also get paid a lot more to do it.
There you go.
You know, I was getting paid, you know, I mean, I was doing a lot of, I had a weekly gig where I was getting paid $50 and, you know, I'm glad for the opportunity of doing it, but you know, when you kind of, one night we were playing this place and, you know, there wasn't enough space on the floor to stand. So people were standing on tables. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm busting my ass for $50 for this.
Yeah.
You know, not
that was a 3-hour gig?
It's a 3-hour gig. Well, the thing with it too is it's like, I'm not mad that I did all this for $50. I'm mad that they're not paying me more. You know, like I still want to do this. And that was a hard lesson that I kind of learned. I didn't really want to throw everything away. So that self-explanatory kind of was that record for me. It was me just trying to figure out how to do it. And then once I made a record where I played everything on it, I realized I had no idea how I was going to play it live.
Right.
So that's kind of where I started the Revolvers. And that's kind of where some of the sprinkling of singles, and then we did, you know, the Use Some Company EP.
Right.
Which was, you know, meant to be a full album, but pandemic-y times. So.
Speaking of Use Some Company, can we listen to one of the tracks off of there?
Yeah. We could. First track, Use Some Company, would be a good one to take a look at.
All right, let's take a listen to that. And this is Use Some Company by Todd Johnson and the Revolvers?
Correct.
All right, here we go.
Declaration. I don't wanna break any hearts. You see, I've been putting my pieces back together, 'cause somebody tore them apart. So don't give me no hesitation. Don't expect to change in me suddenly. If you want to try and stand nearby, I could use some company. There's a decision to cut off my red light. So go on down somewhere uptown, find yourself some real.
Todd, Use Some Company. I like it, man. I like it. Fill me in on how this came about, this song.
Yeah, so this maybe would have been 2015-ish or something. I had moved out from my brother's place. I had found this log cabin up in China Grove. It was like a former log cabin business.
Nice.
And they didn't know what to do with it, and the rent was cheap. And so
always a plus.
Well, and also too, it was a perfect small house that was kind of had this beautiful, you know, all this woodwork around in it, so I could record in it. So I basically made it like, you know, a bed in the corner loft, and then everything else was, you know, for the band recording stuff and all that. So while I was there, I was trying to do, just kind of as much writing as I could. And that one was, I was driving down the interstate and almost home, because I had to do a lot of driving to China Grove from playing in Charlotte, and just kind of had the don't want no declarations. I don't want to break any hearts. And just kind of, and by the time I was driving, it probably wasn't very safe, because I started typing notes in my phone of like, I just kind of had this thing in my head. I had just how it was going to go. So by the time I got home, I already kind of had the lyrics and the melody worked out, and it was just, can I be lucky enough and play the guitar enough to get the chords right? And so that one was just, you know, wrote it really quick, and it was kind of right there immediately. And then when the Revolvers kind of, and then I think, and there's an acoustic version of somewhere online with that, but.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've also got a video on there too of acoustic stuff, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Just tell me about
and then, you know, I've kind of been doing, I kind of got to a point where I've had so many songs sitting, and we're trying to get the Revolvers to do it. And, you know, around 2018, 2019, me and, you know, I was talking to a group of the people that have been playing with a lot. Yeah. We said, you know, we should really put out a record. You know, we really have so many of these songs. So when Use Some Company kind of came on the chopping block, it was a slow acoustic-y song. And, you know, we were playing live and being like playing Sam Cooke songs and playing a bunch of funk stuff now, and kind of playing a bunch of soul stuff, because, you know, really liked having a saxophone in a band. And so I was like, well, is there a way that we could kind of jazz this up? And that's the cool thing about the Revolvers. So I called, you know, my favorite kind of Motown drummer. I call him my Motown drummer because he always just kind of kills some of these really cool Motown riffs and does these like Latin beats as well that he's really into. And Fred Dunlap. And I was like, I need to figure out how to do the song. And he was really good about like, well, just shut up and play it for me. And he did it. And he goes, well, what if we do it like this? And I was like, oh, that's the song, you know, and then, you know, and it was annoyingly like a movie where like, how do we do this? And then the saxophone plays in the corner going, I guess it goes like this. And it was just like, why can't every song be like this? You know?
So I got a question for you. It just hit me while we were talking. And it reminds me at the beginning of our conversation. So you've got Todd Johnson and the Revolvers. I'm thinking the Revolvers gun.
Right.
But you also revolve in different players. So are the Revolvers because the players are a revolving door, or is it more like the gun?
Yeah, no, it's revolving players. The gun thing is the big, if I would have had any sense, I would have called it Todd Johnson and the Rotators. Okay. But, cause I don't like, especially with guns and stuff, I don't want to be seen as the guy that's like, I'm like, we're guns or whatever. You know. But the idea is, you know, I was in my 20s where I was ruining my voice. Yeah. And, you know, I was very much a hired gun player. I was playing bass for people. I was in country bands. I was going on the road, you know, to Georgia and back on runs and stuff. So it would be like I got what it was like to be a hired gun player. Yeah. And just kind of show up and you have to know these trial by fire kind of things and just fake it till you make it kind of thing. And I felt like there were a lot of really good band members that I could get to play this record I had just made. Right. That might not be available all the time. But if I make the band revolving, I can go, hey, and the best way to get a band, any musicians, is go, what are you doing in a month and a half? Do you have that date open? This is the pay. This is where it's at. Any musician is going to be like, okay, cool. Like we just have this thing in our head about a gig. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, instead of trying to get musicians and go like, well, this is what I think my idea is, because I didn't know what it was. I never know what I'm going to write half the time. So it's, you know, this is a way to kind of go, oh, you know, now I've realized this is a way that I can write a song and let it be whatever it is and then hire those musicians to play on it. Right. And normally the way I'm hiring them is getting them on a gig that I can go ahead and pay them on. Right. And then teach them the song and then be like, well, man, you know, you're the guy who knows the song.
So the Revolvers is the revolving door, basically.
Yeah. I've had close to 35 members in the band. Wow. Over the past 9 years. I would like to get it. What I'd really like to do is start showing that off live. Yeah. Because we've been an original and corporate band for years just to kind of pay the way for it. Gotcha. But, I really want to kind of focus on being an original band. And one of the things I really want to do with the Revolvers with that is start doing, like revolving in kind of special guests from other bands and different stuff like that for kind of fun nights. You know, I always like the idea of you never really know what kind of show you're going to see. Yes. I think that's a lot of fun.
Okay. Now, just thinking back, sorry, I don't mean to change gears on you, but so going back to the song, Use Some Company, you have a video online. You did that during the pandemic?
Yeah, yeah. So
it's solo acoustic.
So the solo acoustic one is back in my old cabin. I recorded that not long after I wrote the song. I just kind of wanted to put something out. And so that's the solo acoustic video. But we also, when we did that full band version, you know, we were gearing up and recording so many songs and demos because we were going to put out a brand new release at the beginning of 2020. And, you know, obviously pandemic happened. And so when that happened, I had 4 out of 15 songs. I'm just trying to remember that we were going to try to look at getting out. And then, but I had 4 of them really recorded. So I sent it around to a couple friends and we're like, is this enough to make a record? And after talking to 1 or 2, they said, well, this one over here, you know, you could probably add that one and that would be, you know, that would round it out. So we just I just mixed it at the, you know, I just mixed the record and got a couple other people to, you know, I sent them a demo and said, here's the guitar and the vocal. do whatever you want on bass.
Okay.
And Joe Riddle would do that. And then, sent it to James Brock as well and said, do whatever, alt percussion, cool stuff you want to do. Just as long as it's not a drum kit, do whatever cool thing you want to do.
Yeah.
And he killed that. So that album has like a collection of so many different people, on that are playing on it. Like James Brock is the drummer on Mysterious Ways. Use Some Company is Fred Dunlap. And on Hot Damn is Tyler Menon, who's now in a band called Stellar Circuits. And so anyway, with all of that, the revolving thing, there's a point in there somewhere. I'm sure you can find, you can take it or leave it. But yeah, that was my rambles.
Well, you just mentioned it. You mentioned another tune that you sent over to me, Hot Damn.
Yeah.
Let's take a listen to that.
Sure.
All right. This is Hot Damn by Todd Johnson, the Revolvers, off of the EP, the 2020 EP.
Yes.
Use Some Company.
Yeah.
Todd, another fantastic track. Fill us in. How'd you write it? Who were the players on this one?
Yeah, so this one did a lot of this is an example of a song that does a lot of Revolver iterations and stuff. So it started just kind of as like a very basic piano-y track. I kind of heard a melody or two in it. And so then I wanted to write it. I had this idea of, we've had female singers in the band at different times, and I kind of had this idea of writing a song from a female's perspective and maybe writing a song that a female would sing. So the idea, really the melody line that first popped in my head was, hot damn, if you see that man, tell him I said hi. And so I was like, I love the way that sounds. It's not me singing it. Right. And this is a fun songwriting experiment, and sometimes I'll do that. I'll just try to go off on a, different idea. Right. And normally it ends up still being me in some way by the end of it. So we kind of had that and started playing around with the band and changing the key, because the band at the time, it was just, at the time it was just kind of four of us, and they were saying, no, this is a song that we've had that's been sitting around that's good. Could we change the key for you to sing it in? Could we move this around? Could we play with it? And then, once we got that, it was Tyler Menon on drums, who's an absolute monster. I mean, absolute monster, drummer. One of my favorite drummers, hands down, that, I've ever had the chance to work with. And he did a really, really great part that really works for the song really well. And Joe Riddle on bass, did such a good job. Luke Jones's guitar on that as well. But that was my one song where I was like, I want to play the solo. I've got an idea. I want to do my one big rock solo / guitar thing. And then from here on out, everyone else can play a guitar solo. That was kind of, I'm not the world's best guitar player. I can hang. Yeah. But let's get, Dan Hood or something to play on it, things like that. So, so that was the guitar solo and guitar work is a little more me, but yeah, Luke Jones kind of came in and did a really good job of kind of understanding where I already was on guitar, and then just adding these really cool flourishes and different things and really thickening it up. So that was really just kind of done by us piecemeal over the course of a couple years. When the pandemic happened, I was like, I think I have those drum tracks from Tyler from 4 years ago. So I had to call him up and say, I know you're in a touring band now, but what do you think about releasing some of this stuff we put out? So, and same with Joe and Luke. So I was very happy that they were like, yeah, let's just do it. So
when you're recording, let's just talk this particular EP.
Okay.
Use Some Company. Did you record it in town? Did you use your studio to demo it? How did this come about?
So it started a lot with demoing. So a lot of this era of songs really coming from me being in the cabin and living kind of up there. So I would do a lot of demoing there.
Yeah.
We would have band practice, and since I would have all my equipment out so we could record stuff. So a lot of times we would be doing demos at band practice.
Okay.
And that's where all of Tyler Minnen's drum tracks came from. Then when we kind of took all of that there was a studio that's not very far from where I lived, owned by a guy named Eddie Snug. And I met him through Chris Gargis working on Mike Ramsey's record. And when we went there, he just had a really beautiful studio, and, you could kind of get away. It was a little bit of a location destination place, I felt like.
Okay.
Cause, the band couldn't go to the bar down the street during lunch hour,
Yeah.
So you could kind of lock everybody away in the studio, which was really nice. And, there, Fred Dunlap, we spent a weekend there, and I spent the weekend there, and then some other musicians would kind of come in and out. So Fred Dunlap played on a lot of drums, Luke Jones on guitar, Joe Riddle did a lot of work on the record, while there, Jillian Zambor, is a fantastic vocalist and, piano player.
Okay.
And we had her on it, as well as Jason Atkins on it as well. And God, I'm hoping I'm not missing anybody, but yeah, we just kind of, went to Snug's place. So a lot of times I'll piecemeal stuff from people. The technology makes it so much easier for me to send someone an email and go, hey man, can I pay you so-and-so to be on this? And you'd be surprised who, especially during the pandemic.
Yeah.
You would, no one had any work. So, we had a lot of like, sure, I'll email that in my home studio and send that to you. Cause like for me, I just want to have a home studio good enough for demoing, but a good drummer friend of mine has a great drum set set up, so we could email back and forth. So it's always a mixed bag process.
Yeah. I think it just depends on the musician. Like there's some musicians I know who do a lot of studio work, and a friend of mine, he, does some recording. He's put out an album, and when he sends stuff out to drummers, these guys are just recording at their homes. And one of the guys he records, has recorded with, sent him an actual video of him playing along to his song. So he sent that to him. So he not only gets the track, he gets the video of the guy playing the tune as well.
Yeah.
Everybody's a little bit different on how they do it.
Right. Well, everybody's kind of got their, their little gig, their little thing that they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I've always wanted to write and record and play live in every different way that you can do it.
Yeah.
Whatever the rule is that this is how you write songs, this is how I write songs, or whatever. I've always wanted to do it however different cool ways we could do it. If it's emailing it around, it's great. I would love to, I'm very fortunate to be working on a new record now, and it's my first time where I'm letting a lot of control go, and I'm very fortunate to work with a music producer and executive producer, and we're kind of putting together a new album. And so that process is vastly different than what I normally do in the Revolvers, where this time I can kind of just be the songwriter and artist.
Are you doing co-writing with them? Because Courtney Lynn and Quinn were here last month, and I was talking to Courtney Lynn about it, and just from a songwriting perspective, I've always found that rather difficult, being like the guitar player, because if I'm co-writing with someone, I find it difficult to sit there and have them stare at me and wait for the next part. Like if I've got this, okay, if you're jamming out a part and it's like, oh, what comes next? You're like, I don't know.
Oh, I
always find that difficult.
Oh, I love that difficulty though.
Do you really?
Like to me, it's a mystery that we got to figure out. It's like taking apart. It's like taking apart a guitar and putting it back together, or a microphone, or why does this tape machine work? But you're doing it on an emotional level.
Okay.
You know, like with Hot Damn, you're right. Like it sounds really stupid, but like it was a dream. And in the dream, there was a woman who said, "Hot damn, if you see that man, tell him I said hi."
Yeah.
And I was in a desert, and there was a piano sounding thing. It was just whatever my subconscious, while I was dreaming, threw in my head, sounded really neat. And so I did everything I could to do that. And once I kind of came up with the idea of, well, how do I make this a song?
Right.
Then it goes from okay, I wrote some ideas. Now I feel like I co-write with a lot of people. I am the annoying guy who goes, I wrote a song. Can I play it for you? And then I want to have a discussion about it.
Okay.
You know, so, I like getting other people's input on what that is a little bit. Does that make sense?
It does, but input and co-writing are two different things. Are they co-writing the lyrics and the music for you, or are you just getting their input? Or
I think,
are you co-writing like, hey, I've written the song,
I'll co-write
bass player, throw down your stank on this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It could either or. Sometimes it's both.
Yeah.
I am all about doing what is best for the song.
Yeah.
What makes the best song. It is all about making the best song. If that means that I co-write it with somebody, if that means, a lot of these songs are co-writes. Mysterious Ways is co-write with a good friend of mine, Will Krause, that's on that same EP.
Okay.
And it's, I'm if it makes a song better, I'm cool with that. I don't care whose part comes up with what. If it's me coming up with a nugget of the idea, or if it's me saying this is exactly how the song goes.
Yeah.
I always kind of try to take a step back, and I don't really care who gets the credit.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not a credit thing. It's just in my head, I just find it difficult if I'm, writing, and it just like I have a writer's block, and all of a sudden somebody's looking at me, and you're like, I'll have to live with this for a little while.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's always frustrating. Yeah, so I understand kind of what you're saying now. Like, definitely the writer's block thing.
Yeah,
I make sure to try to do whatever I can to always kind of feel like I'm writing something.
Yeah.
And then I kind of got to finish it. And if I have that little stress on me, it makes me finish up an idea and then go to the next one.
Yeah.
Or put it on the shelf. Cause with the writer's block thing, maybe it's just not working yet.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll work Hot Damn, maybe it'll work in 3 years when those guys go, hey, that idea you had, let's actually do it. That's kind of, I try not to be scared of it.
Okay.
I
mean, it's good to be open to different ideas and different approaches. It's always good.
Yeah. I try to be. And maybe that's to my detriment. Maybe I do need to be better about finishing something up, at the house on my own, and then put it out and not really get the opinions of it. But I feel like I've already done that before.
Right.
And I was kind of forced to do that when I was in school. This was the only way I could get a record out. I was kind of forced myself to do that when I was in my brother's basement, and now I'm fortunately in an area where I get to have a band where I can play with my friends. And if they need to go do their own thing, I can completely support it. And there's not the band's breaking up scenario. And so I'm all about collaboration and community, because I think it makes me a better songwriter.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So again, we've talked a lot before we even started recording, but I've got a couple of questions for you. Today's music industry is a little bit of the Wild West. Everybody's doing something different. So with your recordings, do you set out with the idea of either putting out an EP, a full-length album, or single in advance? Yeah. Or do you just say, I've got this collection of songs, these fit really well together, this is going to be an EP? And when you do, are you thinking ahead like, I'm going to do only a digital release, or I'm only going to do I'm going to put this out as a CD? So where are you at? Okay. So I can tell you exactly where I'm at with that right now and what I'm working on. Okay. So, the producer I'm working with, Dan Hood, I really wanted to work with him. I got to get him on the podcast. Oh man. Oh, he's a great guy. Great guy. But he, we were kind of talking about a few different things, and he was like, I want you to make an album.
to make an album with you. That was kind of his thing. And I was at the time, I was very hesitant of doing that because I wanted the Revolvers to get to an area where we could do like a new single a month.
Yeah.
Like I think with the way that our band functions, that would be a cool idea. And I don't really know if the art of the album, as much as I loved albums, I think that it's important for if you're going to do an album versus an EP or a single, make sure that you're really doing it on purpose.
Right.
Make sure that it needs to be something we have to sit and listen to front to back these days, because we listen to all sorts of new music in different ways now, and we listen to them on playlists. And, you know, really, we might not have time to listen to a band's whole new album, but we can hear their new single. And if you put that new single out once a month, that's maybe not a bad idea. So I didn't really want to make an album. What ended up happening was Dan really looked at me one day as a songwriter and was like, you realize that like if we look at these songs right here, like all of these group of songs right here, they're all love songs.
Right.
And I never realized that through line that I was writing these love songs and these kind of things. And he kept going, we need to make an album. We need to make a full length album. And so I kind of came up with this idea after talking with him. I was like, wait a second. If we break out these different sections of songs, we have love songs that sound like a rock band. We have love songs that sound like the Revolvers playing a corporate wedding band, which is a lot of what some of us are, you know, to pay the bills. And then you have these songs over here that are very much like would work great if you got the Smokin' Jays from the Smokey Joe's open mic to play it.
Okay.
And since that, you know, so he said that and made that the framework for the album, which was cool because now that makes me go, there's a point to this album. If we break it into 3 EPs, it can still do we put a single out at a time and then that EP comes out. Then we put another single or 2 out and then that EP comes out. Another single or 2 and that EP comes out. And then we release that on vinyl as a full record. So that way you're kind of more invested by the time an album comes out. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. So you've got do you have all these songs already written and he wanted to put it out as one big album and then you've kind of decided, well we're going to release these ones that sound more of a collection together as EPs. Do I have that correct?
Well, actually what we did was I came in with like 30 songs and he kind of was like,
oh snap. Okay.
He was kind of like, there were like 5 or 6 songs that were going to be on Use Some Company that I was like, this is what we need to do. And he was kind of like, no, you already know what you want to do with them. I want to work with you on brand new, no idea what you're doing stuff. So most everything on the record has been brand new for me written. Never really played a lot of it out, which is very weird for me because I write a song and then I work it live for 3 to 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Usually. It's not on purpose. It's just that's kind of the way it happens.
Yeah.
And Dan's whole thing has been, I want you to write it, I want you to demo it, and we're going to get it quick. And so we've got the first EP completely done, and it's at first I was like, I don't know, this guy's saying this is how we should record stuff. And now that I'm listening to it, it's great. And so what we've got for the second and third EP, we have most of it written. We are pretty sure how we're going to record it, but we're waiting until we decide from the batch of new songs that we're working on, these songs are going on this one, this song's going on this. So the idea is it's a 3-part album that we're going to release through singles and different parts. So the first one is going to be called The Love Sessions. To kind of let everybody know.
That's really cool.
These are everything from here on out. For a while, these are all love songs in some way, shape, or form.
So how many songs are you setting on, thinking about for each album or EP?
I'm thinking about 4 to 6 for each EP.
Wow, that's a lot.
So it stays an EP.
Okay.
For each one. This first one's 5. Love Sessions is 5 songs. But the cool thing is I'm writing so much more with this concept in mind of like, what if I wrote every love song from every angle that I could think of? Like love of country, love of family, love of my, I've got a song I'm working on about my dog, you know, cause I love my dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe not all of these ideas will get on the album.
Yeah.
But it would be cool that when we release it, we could also, you know, just see what we have. Maybe we'll release some of these demos that don't come out, or, you know, so, you know, at the moment I've got about 10 or 15 new ones that we're pretty ready to go with.
And then almost from a copyright standpoint, you can release them and put them under the copyright of the one EP album, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm probably, and this is the fortunate thing about Guilford Tech.
Yeah.
I also had to take music business. So for the copyright, I think the way that it can work is that I can, I'm going to do everything as each individual song, just copyright each individual song.
Right.
Especially the ones that will be singles.
Yeah.
At first, I think is kind of the idea, but I can also, the packaging around it, I can also copyright the idea of the 3 album.
Okay.
thing. Does that make sense? I believe
it does. I always thought, and I could be wrong.
To this, and then as I started going down the rabbit hole, I did. So I clearly have no idea what I'm talking about.
I'm pretty sure that you can, and I could be wrong. Somebody correct me.
You can use it as like if you send in a full album with the songs listed and all the music, you can send it in as a collection.
Yes, you can send the whole thing.
Yes.
I'm just saying if you release it as an individual, you know, it's going to cost you more in the long run if you release a solo, a single here and then copyright another single. But if you release them in the collection of one EP, or if you have all the songs already written and recorded, you can release them under one package.
Right. Well, my idea for this too, being this way is this way in 3-4 years when you come back to it, if somebody were to find this album.
Yeah.
Cause we're living in look at what happened with Kate Bush on Stranger Things. We're living in an era where people can come back and find things.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that someone's going to come back and put, you know, something,
but never know.
But if there's something cool on this record that works for, a Netflix show in 10 years, I would love to have it on there.
Yeah.
So, but the idea is I would want you to see, all the different cool ways that we did do the slow release.
Yeah.
And so the way that I think that is really important of doing that is video. So we're going to have a very heavy video element to go along with this album. And that's a little bit more of my choice of what we want to do. And I kind of now have the time since I'm not the producer and kind of Dan's really doing a lot of that stuff very well. And he's doing a really good job of going, all right, the same thing that I want to do is what makes for the best song.
Well, there's just so much to, you know, releasing stuff as a musician today that you have to think about and the different hats that you have to wear. Right. And again, as we were just talking about, you know, here I am, you're telling me all this release stuff and I'm thinking, man, well, how are we going to do that with a copyright? You know, that's something as today's musician you have to think about that they didn't think about 40 years ago.
The to-do list for doing any of this is massive. And I think the pressure a lot of people get under and the problem is going, oh, I've got to do these 80 things. I've got to do these 80 things. But the things that always worked for me was the trial by fire and saying I'm going to do it. Yeah. Now, sometimes did I learn 38 of those 40 songs, you know, or, you know, a lot less? Yes, you know, but if I set that goal, I could try that. So, and I think that there's nothing wrong with doing anything at the level you wanted to do it. I've always kind of wanted to put out a lofty kind of record that has a bunch of music videos and instead of kind of stopping myself from doing it, I'm ready to, if 3 people hear this album, neat, you know, but if it goes more than that, that's great too. I just really want to be able to be happy and hold on to it.
Well, you got to do it. Otherwise you're not going to know whatever is going to happen. You know, what if I would have put out a video with this, would have gotten a little more traction when people have looked at it? You know, you just never know.
Well, and then you learn from it. Yeah. You know, like if I do a really big record and it completely flops, I'll go, sweet. Okay. Now I know to do it a lot cheaper. Like it's not going to make me stop. I love doing this. Yeah. You know, so
I've been talking to a lot of the artists locally about the role that social media is playing for them. And I think the more I've been talking to people, I think I know one person, that's probably Reese Raps. She's got the social media thing on lockdown. But most of the other folks I talk to are like, we have no idea what the heck we're doing.
I don't think anyone does. And I think And I think once you admit that, I think that's why this album is kind of been good for me, because I've realized now, oh, this is how I could release it on social media. I've started thinking of social media, and I think of producing the same way as like songwriting. It's an artwork. Mm-hmm. So if I can make the social media part of it art, it's so much easier for my brain to understand.
Right.
And I grew up with music videos. So the way that I can do that is, all right, well, let me just make music videos.
Right.
Now I know that, some people will say, well, okay, well, you also need a TikTok. So that way, because TikTok's big now and you got to do that thing. But it reminds me of like we were talking earlier, going all the way back to MySpace.
Yeah.
These things are going to come and go.
Yeah.
They're going to come and go. There's always going to be, you're going to learn one, and then you got to learn that one. Then it's going to be different, and the technology is going to change. So you're always going to kind of have to adapt anyway.
Right.
So you just kind of put stuff out there.
Yeah.
But for me, I would start stuff and then stop, and start stuff and then stop. So my whole plan too with getting all these songs together first,
yeah,
and all the content, is so that way I know exactly what's coming out on social media 2 months before it's even happening. Because if I'm being very honest, if I wasn't a musician, I wouldn't have social media.
Yeah.
I mean, I just wouldn't have it.
Interesting.
Anybody that I need to see pictures of their kids that are relatives to me, I'll
go see them.
I'll go see them, or they already send me those pictures.
Yeah.
We text back and forth. We already have a conversation, and I mean, I would probably still have my Facebook and never check it, kind of thing. But I just, at the same time, because I don't really care for social media, I don't think anyone does, if we're really honest with ourselves.
Right.
And I think that me being better about just posting where I'm playing, I get to see people, people will actually come out if I get off my butt and put it out there and promote it and tell people about it. That's a good lesson for me to remember.
Yeah.
It is a tool that we can use,
I kind of like it. There's certain things that they're interesting about it for me. I mean, I'm not saying tons of people are coming to shows, because I'm promoting them on social media, but I did like that, I went to a good photographer and I got some pictures taken and some professional photos, and I'm able to use those, and I have some good quality stuff. It's not a picture of me hanging out, with my guitar, and that's what I'm using. Right. And then, just on a completely personal aspect, I know I haven't been out of high school for quite some time. It's kind of interesting to keep up with some of the folks that I went to school with. I'm not super close with all of them. The people who are close to me, I'm always going to be, I can pick up a phone and talk to, but it's, wow, holy crap, I haven't talked to this person in 25 years, but I see their stuff on Facebook and they're still alive,
Yeah, I think that's the thing right there, is exactly kind of what you're saying, is like, I think that's what everyone wants their little social media to be, but when you're playing, you immediately do this thing of like, oh, now I gotta post more. I gotta do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it gets intimidating for me, at least. It gets really intimidating. But I've also noticed, like, if we're being really honest with ourselves, the reason we don't like social media and stuff is because the fact of just the perception that we always don't like a fake perception. And then, and then we're getting targeted ads that are, super targeted specifically to us. And it could kind of get exhausting a little bit. And so part of me was thinking, well, wouldn't it be fun as an artist to play with that and point that out, along with how I'm promoting my music? And that is kind of giving me a way to make it fun.
Yeah.
And if I can make something fun, I'll probably pay attention to it a little bit more and make it work. But at the same time, I'm still at the point where I'm like, I could completely delete it today.
Yeah.
Like if someone ran over my phone and I didn't check my Instagram for the day, I'd be like, oh no.
I mean, trust me, I'm not sitting there checking my Instagram feed for everybody's pictures. There's certain things that I find are really cool.
Yeah. But I'll just sit there and just scroll. I'm just like, it just eyeball crack,
Yeah, I talked with Courtney Lynn and Quinn about that last month, and I get lost. All of a sudden you're sitting there and I'm watching a movie on TV and I'm like, oh, let me check. Oh, look at this reel. That's pretty funny. That dog made me laugh. What else is there? And then 20 minutes later you're like, crap, I just sat there and spent 20 minutes scrolling through these 30-second feeds, and my brain is dumber. I haven't learned anything to do anything from.
Well, and for me, like I'll see musicians that I like, or even local musicians, and new album out, new single out, and I'll go, cool. And I'll go, well, I want to listen to that. And then won't listen to that because then I'm scrolling through and I'm seeing the other guy who's putting out another thing. I'm like, oh, cool. And then I'll save it and I won't get and it's like I don't take the time because I got to keep scrolling to even do the thing where I'm like, oh, my friend is doing something. I want to check it out. Or, it is weird. So I don't know what to do with social media, but I'm going to take a pretty weird stab at it when the album comes out and try to have fun with it.
I think everybody, like you said before, nobody really knows what they're doing. They're just going to try to do it. Right. And then you just don't know how many people are going to show up. Your friends might look at it. Oh, and like you just said, oh, that's really cool. But they didn't even listen to the album. Right. Or they didn't even come to the show that you posted. So you just do it and you hope, it hits and maybe one or two people come in and see you're playing. Right. And it's a good thing. Or even if you're playing at a venue, somebody who wants to find out what's going on in town, latches onto that venue and see, oh, this guy's playing. Let me go check them out.
Yeah. So, well, and I think, that's the thing. We keep forgetting sometimes, we keep forgetting that the entire goal should be to have fun and do it as often as possible. Yeah. Because if you go and you have fun, you do it as often as possible, and you get on a stage and you just keep hitting it and hitting it and hitting it, you're gonna, something's better than where you're at's gonna happen. Yeah. I think we always have this perception of, well, we need to get to the peak. We don't even know what the peak is. Just keep doing the work and have fun with it. Cause I'm very excited about this next record. It's probably the best thing I've ever done that I would say personally. Yeah. I enjoy it the most. I'm super scared that it might not be as, neat as I think it is. But at the same time too, who gives a shit? Yeah. Just enjoy it. I think that's part of the thing today of being an artist. It's very freeing where you're going to do what you want to do because on one level, it's not going to have mass appeal. So you're not Aerosmith and you don't know, you don't have to fit in this little box. You can kind of do whatever you want and put it out. Right. And what's funny is usually the people who just do whatever they want and put it out anyway tend to get to a level that they were not thinking that I would never think that I could have been a full-time musician again after being told I might not ever be able to properly sing again. Yeah. That's awesome. So right now for me, I just kind of feel like anything else on top is gravy, And I think not to mention I think you find yourself as an artist too, if you don't just pigeonhole yourself in a box. If you let yourself be a little free to come out what you want to come out, you might go down some alleys that you didn't think you were going to ever hit and then 100%. Go, oh man, I've actually like this better. 100%. Hey, speaking of social media, Todd, you also have your own podcast. Yes. It's called Making Noise with Todd Johnson. Yes. So, do you do a video podcast? Yeah. Is it just audio? Cause I listen to it on audio. Yeah. So I wanted to do video when we did it because, in a way, I saw podcasting kind of came back on. I had a podcast years and years ago, back when you had to explain how to download it on somebody's iPod. So nobody really listened to it, but I really enjoyed doing it. Yeah. And so when I was wanting to make another one, me and Jay Connor, great friend of mine, saxophone player who, sax man of the band. And we kept talking about doing a podcast. And I was like, well, if we're going to do it, I'd want to do it right. I'd want to do it right. And how do we do it right? So we just talked about that for 6 months. Yeah. And, the pandemic helped. So we also knew that we were like, well, this is not, the pandemic's happening. The world doesn't need another podcast, but here we go. Because what's going to be our angle? What's going to be our thing? We didn't want it to just be the two of us talking. So we kind of came up with this similar idea to what you're doing here, where we really wanted to just talk to musicians and friends that we've been working with. Yeah. And, one of the things that was important to me was that we were able to get video of it and get it on YouTube and put it on Instagram and have Instagram clips for a minute. Sure. And see what that looks like. Right. Would that help us or not? Yeah. And if it does, it does. It doesn't, it doesn't. And, it helped us a lot more than I thought it would, having the video and the audio. Mm-hmm. Just because we'd had some people who were like, yeah, I put it on, in the shop on YouTube or whatever. That's how I listen to stuff. And that's when I was kind of like, oh, it's not, just it's kind of an interesting way just to make sure to kind of have it there too. So it was also an excuse to kind of learn how to film a little better.
Right.
Just get a little better than what I was with it.
Are you talking to only local folks, or are you talking to just folks from everywhere that you know?
I'll talk to anybody who gets on the show. I have no shame. We were talking about it at first. We did have a group of people, a list of people that we were talking about. Yeah. That's kind of a top list. And I want a reasonable top list. Yeah. I want to get a couple of them. But, when we started the podcast, it got bigger, I think, than we were, not like it got very big, but it just, a lot of the work was taxing.
Yeah.
I really wanted to make the quality very high in the show, and then also add video and all this shit. But then it's like you're doing, I'm working on this podcast that's making $0.
Yeah.
And, doing it for the love of it. And, also I wasn't playing as much.
Sure.
These were kind of weird times, and these were times where, you could have people over, but you couldn't have more than 7 people, and we were trying to figure out how to, handle that. So we're taking people's temperatures. They're coming through the door at my house. It was just weird. But, we had Dan Hood as a guest, and was talking to Dan, and some point during the interview, I think it's in the interview, some point during the interview, me and Dan are talking about, both doing music production stuff and asking each other's kind of advice on it. And it was me asking his advice. Let's be very honest. And, in the middle of the conversation, Jay said, well, Dan, you should produce Todd's album. And, Dan was like, I'd love to. And so that started the conversation a little more. And so once it kind of got to a point of, oh, we're really going to jump in and make a big deal out of trying to make this record and try to make the best record we can, not just kind of make one real quick.
Sure.
And, once that kind of happened, I kind of had to be very honest with myself and go, do I want to do a podcast that looks really good, that, a lot of my friends and other people that like are starting to enjoy? Do I need to put all my energy into that, or do I need to do this album? Right. So to me, I kind of was like, well, if making noise, stops for a year, that's fine.
Sure.
That was something I kind of had to tell myself too, because I'm not really good at stopping.
I know that. I know all too well.
So, putting it into it and putting a plug in it, is absolutely a good thing, because I'm able to make this record the way I want to make.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to shoot the music video stuff.
Yeah.
But, now I can, kind of do some of that stuff a little bit more because I don't have the podcast. So I think I would want to do it again. And I think what I would do is, get me and Jay involved with, 1 or 2 other people that could help out, put the thing together, and maybe just kind of make it more of a music jam kind of thing.
How often were you releasing?
Well, we were releasing once a week.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do my podcast once a month, and I know there's a lot of people who do bi-weekly and weekly, and there's folks who do every couple of days.
Right.
And it's just a lot of work.
Right.
And I know just doing podcasting. So this is the 5th year of the Queen City Music Podcast.
Awesome.
And I started from the beginning, like, it's going to be monthly. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it fits my schedule of being able to release and talk to people.
Right.
And I know, and you probably realize, of course, the amount when you go into editing and everything it is to get it together. Well, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. To me, the shows that I really enjoyed, always seem to come out weekly.
Yeah.
And they were wanting to make something happen with it.
Yeah.
As far as that. And that was kind of the thing too, where I was saying when you were asking, is just Charlotte folks or something? Because for me, like, I think this is a perfect example of this works for your schedule.
Yeah.
If you were to do Charlotte folks once a week, you'd run out of us.
Yeah, probably.
But for us, I wanted to see, I was barely playing and making any money.
Yeah.
So for me, it was kind of like, let me see how big I can make this.
Yeah.
And, not really in the area of trying to get podcast famous or anything, but it was kind of like, if this could be something that could work, to a level and could be a part of how I do music as well, that would be a neat kind of thing. And, so we didn't really know what we were going to do. I just knew I wanted to do something that was weekly.
Yeah.
and so we kind of tried it out and tested it out. At the time I had the schedule to do weekly and I don't now.
Yeah.
So that really makes me consider kind of what you're, was saying as far as doing the monthly thing.
Yeah.
But I'm not really gonna stress about putting it back out anytime soon.
Yeah.
I'd like to do it again. It was a lot of fun. I felt like we got a lot of great interviews. We're going to try to keep it up, keep the site and stuff up, so that way anyone can still find it on, Apple Podcasts or anything. But, it was a lot of work that wasn't me writing songs.
Yeah. No, I get that. I mean, for me, it just became a labor of love. I am a podcast junkie, listening to them.
Yes.
Podcast is just another thing that I do. And I always say the same thing. It helps me do three things. It helps me get my name out there. Yep. It helps me meet other musicians in town. And it gives me a platform.
Well, it's weird. I probably wouldn't have met some of the people or worked with some of the people that I'm working with now without the podcast.
Yeah.
Because of the podcast, I was able to, just like this, I was able to say, hey, can you come over to my house?
Yeah.
And we have a conversation.
Yeah.
That never would have happened with other musicians because we were always gigging.
Yeah.
And when we're gigging and we were fortunate enough to see each other, we're like, hey man, how's it going? Did you play at that thing? What happened to that guy? I haven't seen that guy in a while.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of, and that's the whole thing. The podcasting thing has been so cool to actually sit and talk with people. And
there's a heck of a lot more podcasts in Charlotte. I mean, 5 years ago when I started the QCMP, there was maybe 2 or 3 other podcasts in town.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm like reading articles, oh, there's 30 or 40 podcasts in town. But that's the catch. And I don't take this the wrong way, but there's podcast fade. I mean, Joni Deutsch was on a while ago and she informed me about podcast fade. Most people do maybe 4 to 10 episodes or something like that. And then they're done.
Right.
And I'm still here. Queen City Music Podcast is still doing after 5 years. Yeah. I think partly because of my format. You
set it up. You set the format up in the way that worked best for you.
Yeah.
I didn't set the format up thinking 2 years ahead. I set the format up thinking 1 year ahead.
Right.
Really.
Yeah.
It was like I want to see where this gets in a year. And within a year, we were kind of sitting at a point where we're getting ready to start a new record and working with, some really interesting, some really great people on it, or doubling down on the podcast.
Yeah.
It was kind of, and I didn't take into account that, once things get a little bit better, my schedule is going to pick back up a whole lot more. So I'd still want to do it. I think I would be interested in podcasting in a little bit of a different way of working with some other people doing it, and helping out with it. But I would like to get to a point with it where I walk in and record it and send it off to somebody to edit it or something. Like that was nothing worse than starting a video podcast and then having to stare at footage of your dumb face for hours a week. Like that was the one thing that I didn't
That's
mind.
why I don't do video, man. I don't want to sit and stare at myself and have another thing to edit. Sound is just enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Well, and just editing the sound too, because it was, I would hear myself as a dumb point. You hear like the dumb thing you say and you're like, I got to cut that out, and all this. That part for me, I think really started to get that was the worst part for me was the editing. I hated the editing, which was weird because I love editing audio and other video.
Yeah.
But just sitting and staring at myself every week, trying to have a conversation with someone shut up, dude.
I've gotten to the point with this now, like, we've been going for a little while and I'm happy to do it.
How do you deal with that?
I don't. Like, I've started to get to the point where like, I used to edit the heck out of this podcast. Right. And on occasion I still do.
Yeah.
And there's a need to. But currently I've had some really wonderful guests who are just as chatty as I am. And I don't feel the need to have to edit as much. So like, I'm pretty sure, what we do talking today is pretty much the whole thing's going to get released.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm
Which
not
is cool
down,
with me.
there's going to be very little editing.
But see how much I give, I don't care
Yeah.
about that if we're switching positions.
Yeah.
like coming in as a guest and just being completely fine. I'm having an absolute blast.
Yeah.
But when I had to sit and my dumb mug's up there, I don't know how to handle that. Or when you hear yourself in conversation, you know, and you're kind of going through and editing, do you try to leave?
Oh, I do as much as I can. I will try to, inside baseball here, folks. I will take out as much stammering as I can.
Good. Right.
Like if I'm sitting here and I'm like, let's take that out.
Right.
Or I'll take out a section of conversation because, I've had guests and you may have had them too. I don't know. Most podcasters have at some point where you have a guest who is not very good in conversation.
Right.
And they're willing to come on your podcast and talk.
Right.
But they don't want to talk.
Right.
Or, they talk for a long period of time and you're like, okay, I've got to cut out this huge section from here to here and make the story more cohesive.
I swear you probably should take a listen to a few of my stories because I feel like there's a few of them in there. You could probably be like, you know, we can just.
Yeah, but I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, each podcast has seemingly gotten a little longer. I used to go hard on 40 to 45 minutes. And then recently it's been like now 50. Now it's an hour.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking, you know, and we're going an hour and 30 and I'm like, you know what? I don't care.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed the conversation. I think somebody else will enjoy the conversation too.
Yeah, I've had an absolute blast. This has been great, man. Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, as we start to wrap things up, Todd, how do we get in touch with you if we want to find out more about Todd Johnson and everything that you're doing?
So, best way, all around, if you look up, Todd Johnson and the Revolvers, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, any of those places, to listen to some of that stuff. There's also Todd Johnson for some of the older things, but it's mixed in with a lot of other Todd Johnsons out there. But if you looking for any of that, contact at toddjohnsonartist.com or toddjohnsonartist.com. At Real Todd Johnson on Instagram and Venmo and all that kind of jazz.
It's been a pleasure having you on, Todd. We'll put all these links in the show notes so people can find out more about you and everything that you've been doing.
Yeah, thanks.
Dude, absolute blast getting to know you and talking with you today.
Yeah, same, man. Thank you so much.
All right, have a great day.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the 60th episode of the Queen City Music Podcast, and I hope you'll go back and check out past episodes. You can find the QCMP on all your favorite streaming platforms. As always, if you have an idea for an episode or would like to be a guest on the QCMP, reach out to me at qcmusicpodcast@gmail.com. Also, check out our local partners, Records on the Wall at rexonthewall.com. Reporting from 20XX at reportingfrom20xx.wordpress.com. Queen City Live at Instagram.com/Queen City Live Music. And Charlotte New Music at charlottenewmusic.org. Until next month, be well and stay safe.